Okay, stage 2, we're going to thin it down some more. This is a raw piece of root beerish type chert, Texas chert. So now the strategy is, it's a different mindset because I'm going to be thinning. The flakes are thinner. I'm going to, intentionally try to reduce the severity of the bulbs of percussion and try not to bite off too much as far as what I can do with the terminations and not get step fractures. See, these are both terminations here, and I guess I was trying for too much in that area, and these broke off. I was trying to have it expand, I think, into this obstacle here, and it didn't go. It's not a good idea to do damage control by trying to predict the termination of the flake. Okay, it's best, if you're going to get an obstacle removed from the middle, is to plane on the flake going past the middle so that your obstacle is in the middle of the flake. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay. Because the middle of the flake is the easiest part to predict. Okay. Now this obstacle is right on the edge. I am going to blast it right from the edge here. Do a direct attack. I can try to reduce the size of it a little bit. It does help to reduce the mass of the obstacle a little bit, if you can. But I was just trying for a bulb removal, but it traveled a little bit further than I thought it was going to travel. But that's all right. It still worked out. But I was just trying for a flake half that length, that much. Just to get that bulb under that stack. Okay. Did that do something? Yeah, that helped clear that out. I wasn't expecting it to do that, but it did it. I'm just trying to thin down the edge a little bit more. So that it becomes more smoothly convex. Now, some people are better at predicting flake travel than others. Some people can predict flake travel pretty good, which is pretty amazing. I cannot predict it all that well. And you can see it in my knapping because I try not to go too thin. Thinness is, or to achieve thinness, is a culmination of many different things. You got to have lots of skill, but you also have to have, at least relatively good material, good tools. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, but you can get it to where the tools are as perfect as possible and the material is as perfect as possible. But just, if you start saying that is the way to flint knap and there's no other way except perfect this, perfect that, and perfect this, you're not really going to be doing it like they used to do it. If you're curious about how they used to do it. There's a lot of improvisation and expediency with the way that they used to do it. You can see it in the artifacts. And yes, there are some perfect looking artifacts. I'm Not denying that. Who knows? They might have gotten those results with less than perfect tools. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know how thin I'm able to get this. All right, let's see. I should just take down the width right away. Normally, I don't know what I'm going to make out of it. I just try to maximize it. Right? Maximize the biface dimensions without knowing what I'm going to make. And I try to decide what I'm going to make later. But that's not the way they used to do it, I don't think. Unless they're just making blanks for trade, then yeah, you try to maximize the size so it appeals to the most number of potential customers. But if you're looking at making something specific, you just go right for the preform size as fast as possible. Like if you already have something in mind. Like let's say all my points in my culture are this size. I got a lot to go, so I would just go to town on the sides of this until I get to a reasonable copy of this, and then thin it down. You know, I can keep this in my bag of tricks, so to speak, as the preform shape for all the points, for the points that my culture used, right? And then go to the quarry or whatever and just try to make a bunch of these, or at least preforms for the preform. Right? Okay. Just as a little side note. But what I'm doing here, just so you know, what I'm doing is I'm trying to maximize it and show you how to get the most out of that piece that I started with. A lot of times it's not the best tactic or the best strategy if I want a nice clean center, because it's hard to run flakes into the center with a wide biface. It's much easier to have a clean blank or a clean biface if it's more narrow. But if you wanted to appeal to the greatest number of customers, some customers or some people you want to trade with want a wide blade. So they won't trade you for the narrow blades. And some people won't watch the videos unless I'm dealing with wide points, because that's what they want to make, because they're making Snyder points or something wide, something like that. Snyders. There are many point styles that have wide preforms. Alright, so most of the concrete's gone, actually. Yeah. It's just a few wonky areas. That's another thing, too. I try to get all the edges straight, because the most of the viewers want to see me straighten the edge. But I could be going with the flow, like they used to do back in the day. They used to go with the flow in many cases, and not concern themselves with a perfectly straight edge. But a perfectly straight edge appeals to the most people, because you can basically make anything you want if you're trading for it. If you're trading in blanks and they got wonky edges, some cultures don't want that, so you're limiting yourself. And same with viewers. on the YouTube videos. They don't want to see wonky edges. Some people don't care. But most viewers, if they're nappers, they want to see how to do a straight edge. Okay. I've been learning about autism. On a continuous basis, I try to learn about autism. And some autistic people, they don't learn by learning the details. They want to know the overall picture. They want to back way up and have a big overview of the whole thing first. And then they can get to the details. If you try to give them all the details and say, okay, assemble these details like a jigsaw puzzle, they don't know how to put the puzzle together. They must have the overhead view, the back way up to get the whole picture and encapsulate everything so there's nothing on the outside. Encapsulate the whole thing and then start to dive into the middle. Some of my children are that way. They don't really have the ability or even a desire to put together the jigsaw puzzle of all the details of something. So I have to be aware of that too. That's why I do a lot of rock to point videos, because you back way off or way up and you start with something you just find on the ground. That encapsulates everything. Then you start digging into how to reduce it. And then you go all the way from beginning to end, so that all the puzzle pieces fit together for the observer. So you don't have to do anything on your own. Okay? Now, I can learn by assembling the pieces. But I've learned, you know, when you have children, sometimes they're not like you. And you go, what is going on? Normally, it's not much of a concern because, you know, yeah, okay, it's someone else's little issue, so I don't have to deal with it. But if it's your kids, yeah, you got to deal with it. And I didn't know these things. I just assumed that they really were resistant to learning, because maybe they didn't like something, just some kind of emotional response was preventing them from absorbing what they were looking at. But no, some people have to look at the entire 30,000 foot view before they can even comprehend that they're supposed to put the puzzle together. Oh, it's a jigsaw puzzle? You mean all these details go together and they're not just random details? That kind of thing. There's a crack right there. It started a radial crack. Oh, I don't like those, because you got to thin it way down to get rid of that. And that happens when you punch inward too much, or when you hit too hard. Yeah, it just strains the stone too much. Radial cracks means it goes in like that, like the rays of the sun from the point of impact. The rays of the sun. This is a sun ray from the crack, the initial crack. Yeah, radial. They will ruin your day. You have to get those out. Okay. Why do I get those in some places and not others? I think it's because I'm hitting too hard, but there might be some other factors. The platform for that one looked just like the other platform, so I don't know if it's the platform. Alright, with this one I'm going to do a flat base. I usually end up doing a rounded, leaf shape, but I'm going to flatten this one. Just for a little change of pace. And yes, I'm using the Abrader as a hammerstone. Because it works. Not because it's a good idea. Because then I put a lot of wear and tear on the Abrader, but because it works. And it's fast. And it's expedient. And opportunistic. Just like my style of knapping. Alright. I just saw an opportunity, so I took it. I do need to get that crack out as soon as possible. I'm probably going to have to switch to aluminum to get a softer tool. That's part of the problem too. If the tool is extremely hard, it does contribute to the radial cracks. Yeah. Don't ask me to explain why. I don't know. Even if you know, it's not going to help your flint knapping that much. Because you'll end up switching tools anyway. Because you go, oh, this not be working, so let's try something else. And you won't know it's because some sort of fracture mechanic or some sort of physics in there. Fracture mechanical thing, some kind of physics thing with a softer tool impacting the edge. I don't know all the physics behind it. And you don't need to know, because you'll eventually, if you learn by trial and error, which is another thing that autistic people have trouble with. If you cannot learn by trial and error very well, you're either going to have to try to figure out the physics or spend a lot of time knapping to get muscle memory. Because whether you have autism or not, you still got muscle memory. You can still do it eventually, just by doing it a lot. All right, so I got under that crack mostly. I got another issue on that side. That's unfortunate. It's probably because I wasn't paying attention. I figured, yeah, I can get it out later, but it's in a concave area, so it's difficult to remove obstacles from a concave area. Yeah. So try not to put obstacles in the concave area, right? Easier said than done, I know. That's all I got is concave areas. All my points are concave. There's scoop outs and there's curves. Yeah, I know. Just don't make them that way. I think that's why some of the artifacts that you find that are like this, that are slightly curved or really scooped out in some areas, are discarded. They didn't continue because they know they're going to run into problems. They don't want to deal with it. So it ends up in the debitage. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go with the fattest aluminum flaker I have, 5/8 diameter. It's already getting very narrow because I'm torturing the edge and I'm creating these obstacles for myself. All right. I'm just going to make it more narrow. You can do this with percussion or pressure. These flakes are not that big, so if you don't care about wearing yourself out with the pressure flaking, you can, trim around the edges with a pressure flaker. I prefer to do it with percussion. Okay. I'm trying to remember the type of learning where you must see the overall view first and encapsulate everything before you can start diving into the details. It's like Gestalt or something like that. Gestalt learning or Gestalt language acquisition. I'll put it in the description. I took a screenshot of what it was. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be thinning this down. I'm not going to be describing everything because if I start thinking about it too much, it doesn't work very well. This is difficult to thin down. So if I had to be thinking about it too much, that makes it even harder. Yeah, when I first started napping, I was taught, try not to hit too much in the same spot over and over and over. The trick is you can hit in the same spot over and over as long as you're not damaging the edge. Okay, you can hit over and over and over. Just make sure that your hits are not crunching the edge. Because if you're damaging the edge and you keep hitting it, you're just going to stall the edge, like stalling the bottom of a notch. And if you don't know what that means, try doing some notches and you'll figure it out. If you're new and you've never done notches, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to stall that notch. And the same thing happens to an edge. Yep. If you hit the same spot over and over and over. And like if you try to notch and push and push and push and push and crush, that notch is going to stall. But if you're not damaging the bottom of the notch, keep pushing. If you're not damaging the edge, keep striking. It's the same thing. And if you find yourself thinking about things too much, just turn on the radio or something to get your mind off of what you're doing a little bit. Okay, what am I going to do about that spot? I think the crack is pretty much dealt with. There's still a little bit left, but it's not going to open up and go across like it was earlier. There was a potential where it could open up. If I hit the bottom really hard, the top sometimes pops off, but there's not much danger of that happening right now. Just because I can see I got under it on the edge. it starts from the edge, right? So if it's not on the edge anymore, it's not as bad. All these cracks open up from the edge. So if it's not there anymore, it's not too bad. All right, so I'm not going to thin it down too much more. If you're brand new, a 4:1 width to thickness ratio is good. If you are an experienced snapper, a 6:1 is fine, because most artifacts that are thin looking are 6:1 or 5:1 or 6:1. All right, 55, and the thickness, this is in millimeters, is like a 8. 7 times 8, no, 6 times 8 is 48. So that's 8. So it's a little bit better than 6:1. 55 by 8. Yeah, it's a little bit better than 6:1. So it's fine for most artifacts. A lot of people want to see me go a lot thinner. They got it in their minds that the thinner you go, the more I respect you. I'm not going to respect you unless you go really, really, really thin. The more thin, the more respect. Yeah. You see that a lot. Which is, it's fine, right? If that's what you're going for. But if you're going for success, you know, you don't have to thin it down too much, because the thinner it gets, the greater the chance of breaking it. What do you want? You want thin or you want successful? Some people say, well, I don't consider it to be a success unless it is thin. Well, if you're in that boat, you're going to break a lot. If you're one of those people that is extremely talented and you don't get a lot of breakage going thin, yeah, you are very fortunate. Don't rub it in. Yeah, don't come around and say, you don't know how to work the stone because you can't get it as thin as I can. You're not really napping. Yeah. Okay. Don't rub it in. See, now this could have been a radial crack if this was harder. I believe, this is just my opinion though, because I'm not sure, but I think this would have been a radial crack. It almost looks like a radial crack on that side. I think it might have been if this was a harder material. This is aluminum, 5/8 inch diameter aluminum. This other piece was a steel rod, 3/8. Much harder than the aluminum, and I think it would have probably caused a radial crack because I hit that really hard to get that long flake. Just so you know. Little details. Some people need the little details to put it together. Some people can't build from the little details. They need to know, why are you giving me that detail? Why are you even telling me that detail? Well, you don't really need to know. You don't need to know that it was because it's, well, potentially because it's softer, that it produces a successful flake. You don't really need to know that, okay? In the overall scheme of things, back in the day, the nappers didn't understand everything, so you don't need to understand everything. So you can skip it. As long as you know the high altitude view is, you step back, it's just success in creating the shape you want. What shape do you want? And it doesn't need to be all that thin. Okay. I am going to go thinner because, you know, people like it. I like it. I do like to go thinner, if I can. If I start to reach my limit of my ability, I will tell you, and I will stop. And just make doo-doo with what I got, so to speak. Like I always say. If I start reaching the limit of my ability, or the limit of my patience, I'll just stop trying to thin it down more. Now, do thinner points sell better than thicker points? Oh, yes. Why? Because they're difficult to make. That's why. Yep. Not for some people, but for most people, yeah. And if you're one of those people that can thin it down easy, you've got the skills and you've got the somehow the eye for it. You know what to do, or your muscle memory does it for you. You think you know what you're doing, but it's all muscle memory. Don't rub it in. It's annoying. Don't say you're the only one who knows how to flint knap because you can get them thin. It's annoying. Okay. I was thinking earlier about taking chances with flint knapping, and I had this whole explanation in my brain. And I said, I'm gonna say that on video, and once I start the video and start knapping, all that information that I had saved up starts pouring out of my ears, and I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah. But I take chances. I take chances with this stuff. Yep. And sometimes what you see is luck. Good luck and bad luck. I take chances because I know what I was going to say. If I want to take care of a problem and I don't see a good opportunity, either constructed or opportunistic, I'll take the shot anyway and live with what I got. Like here, there's not really a good attack on this. And I think this is the trouble spot from before. I don't know. Seems like it is. I got a crack right here too. So the material doesn't like to be thinned down. So I got a crack there, that's not good. I got this mess, that's not good. If I have to construct a platform, I'll do it. But if I don't see any good area, I'll construct it in a place that's not so good, you know? The best that I can with the stuff that I got. With the edge that I have, I'll try to construct an area to hit as best I can, or I'll look for an opportunity, the best opportunity that I think will do the trick, and I'll take a chance knowing that it's not the best attack on that obstacle. I know it isn't the best. I just do it anyway because to me that seems like the best opportunity. I can't think of a better way. I can't construct a better platform. I don't see a better opportunity. I'll just take that chance. That's what I was going to say. That's what I was thinking about earlier. I did remember it. How did I remember that? I cut way back on my junk food. So now I don't have brain fog like I used to, as bad as I used to. All right. Some of you might say, well, I still can't follow what you're saying on some of your videos. Your yapping is all over the place. I know. Let's see if I can do this. Awesome, yeah. Sometimes you can push against the face of that step fracture. And it's also nice if it actually works. And it did. It did work to a good extent. Yeah. It's got to be thin enough to push against the face of those step fractures. Alright, so I'm going to finish this up with pressure on the next segment and put notches in it. Okay? It's already 36 minutes. Alright, we'll see you on the next segment.